Hi, and welcome to CMH Corner's first video. Today, I will talk about Hampton Court Palace and the Tower of London and how they are used today. Next week, Courtney will talk about the history of Hampton Court Palace and the Tower of London. Last weekend, March 14th to 17th, I went to London with my grandfather. While we were there, we took time to visit both Hampton Court Palace and the Tower of London. For me, as a history geek, I was in awe of being in these places that so much happened while they were in use. Today, Hampton Court Palace is a big tourist attraction in England. In 2017, they had 984,862 visitors. Hampton Court Palace has also been the location of several movies, like Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, Holmes and Watson, and Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows, to mention some. The palace was also the venue of the road cycling time trial of the 2012 Summer Olympics. And temporary structures for the event includes a set of thrones for the time trialists in medal positions were installed on the ground. The building of the palace started February 12, 1515. So in 2015, the palace had its 500th anniversary. The celebration included daily dramatized historical scenes. The first Catholic service held in Hampton Court Palace in 450 years was held on February 9th, 2016.
If we do any more to this matter. Henry, wilt thou have this woman to thy...
It's good. Hope they're having fun. Cool. Now I'm in the guards' chamber. Here the guards hung out.
Yeah, that's why the door is so small, to contain the smell. There are fireplaces almost everywhere. It's feeling too chilly, but then I've got it warm around. This is so sweet.
And here we have some more of the kitchens, and we actually have one live fireplace here. You can actually feel the heat. Then we have the big kitchen. Let's go upstairs and see them. Here you can see that they have done some cooking, or a lot of cooking, as you can see. Now I'm in the prison chamber. Here we have the public dining room. Look at these dresses. also play games of dice or cards. Here we have the privy chamber. Found a wine cellar and a dog. And that was all from Hampton Court for this time.
The Tower of London is also a big tourist attraction in England. The tower had 2,842,970 visitors in 2017. And its full name is Her Majesty's Royal Palace and Fortress of the Tower of London, located on the north bank of the River Thames in central London. In the 21st century, the tower's primary role is tourism.
Currently being guarded by a young Gurkha soldier. Can you see him? See him? Heard about the Gurkhas? Do you know about them? Gurkhas been fighting alongside the British Army for about 203, 204 years now. We bumped into them in Nepal when we had an empire out there. We couldn't beat them. After 2 years of fighting them, we offered them a job and said, come on, if you can't beat them, join them. Would you come and join our army? They said yes. And they've been fighting alongside us now for 203 or 204 years. So fierce soldiers. The knife they carry on the back there is the kukri. Okay, an official weapon system of the British Army. Anyway, so there we go. So we've got the Gurkhas guarding the Queen's house. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Queen's house. A perfectly preserved Tudor residence that still serves as the home of the Constable of the Tower and his family. And the current Constable of the Tower of London is a gentleman called General the Lord Horton. He left the British Army about 2 years ago. He used to command it. So he's a very capable man and a very loyal one too. And incidentally, he's the only man in this country who does not need an appointment to see the Queen. Okay, so that sort of regard he's held in. Anyway, so being the home of such important officials throughout history, it stands that we've had some very important prisoners in there also. The Marquess of Tullibardine and Lord Lovett were held in there after the failure of the Second Jacobite Rebellion in 1745. At a much earlier period, it's believed the fifth wife of King Henry VIII, Queen Catherine Howard, was also held in the Queen's house. We had a very important prisoner in there called William Penn, and he was held in there for his offensive writings. Even as a prisoner, he compiled his controversial pamphlet, No Cross, No Crown. He was released from there only on the condition that he leave the country. He did. He crossed the Atlantic to find his famous Quaker colony called Pennsylvania. Well done down here. Pennsylvania, named in honour of his father. Anybody here from Pennsylvania, by the way? No? Okay, well, we had him in there for a nice stay, William Penn. Now, one of the last prisoners to be held here at the Tower of London was a man called Rudolf Hess, and he was second in command of Nazi Germany. And not a lot of people know this, but during the Second World War, if ever we caught hold of Adolf Hitler and we were determined to catch him, he was coming here to the Tower. But more specifically than that, he was going to go in the Queen's house. We didn't catch Adolf Hitler, did we? You all know that. But we did get his second in command, Rudolf Hess. And we put him inside there for 4 days in May 1941. But something was happening in Great Britain, September 1940, all the way through to May 1941. What was it, ladies and gentlemen? The Blitz, yeah, you got it. The Blitz. And the Blitz was a massive step up from the bombings. It went on for about 8 months. The bombing of all the major cities and ports right across Great Britain. Well, what did that mean for London? At its worst, at its peak, 57 consecutive days or nights of the bombing of London, designed to break the morale of the British people and soften us all up in preparation for Operation Sea Lion, the mainland's invasion of Great Britain by Nazi Germany. Well, the Blitz failed. It wasn't concentrated enough. The Battle of Britain had taken place, hadn't it, right above our heads, and that battle was won. So the Blitz failed. But nevertheless, we still needed him alive, didn't we? Second in command of Germany in there, Adolf Hitler was furious. So we had to get him out of there, put him in the countryside for his own safety, got the information we wanted from him. Then after the war, we took him back to Germany, put him through his war crime tribunal in Nuremberg, where he was sentenced to life imprisonment in Spandau prison, Berlin. He was found dead in his cell in 1987, believed to have committed suicide. So if you're into your military or your political history, read that one on Rudolf Hess. Okay? Right. Getting a wiggle on now. Right across the back of the square. Right there, ladies and gentlemen, is where you are going to find the crown jewels and royal regalia. Entrance is beneath that clock. Now I'll give you just one example of a diamond that's in there. It's called the Cullinan One, the Star of Africa. And that diamond weighs in at 530.2 carats. Now I'm a bloke, so I don't actually have any idea what a carat is. But gentlemen, if you do want to know, just ask the ladies and I'm sure they will tell you all about it. All I know is it's about that big, okay? It is the size of an egg. And it is the largest cut diamond in the world by far. So absolutely fantastic. But as you're going through that jewel house, there is a warning. Ladies, please do not be tempted to compare that chip on your finger with what's in those cabinets and then start looking at your other half. You might just realise you've married a loser. And of course, our strong and stable government would insist that all that stuff in there was gifted to us by grateful nations. Lots of guns around at the time, but we're not getting into that right now, okay? Okay, so that's the jewel house. Hands up if you haven't been in yet. If you haven't been in, wow, okay. Don't panic though. After this, once the tour's finished, go and do the crown jewels, have a cup of tea, White Tower. That's what I would suggest. Okay. Right, on that note, that's the reason why we're all here, the Great White Tower, built on the orders of William the Conqueror in 1078. Now, it took about 20 years to build that under the direction of Gundulf of Beck. Gundulf, not Gandalf, okay? That was somebody else. Our royal family lived and ruled from the top floor up there for 500 years. The middle floor was a banqueting hall, council chamber, accommodation for knights and their ladies, and the chapel of St. John the Evangelist. The lowest floor of windows you can see was for soldiers and servants. That's the one I'm looking for. Soldiers and servants in there. Windows went in that building about 200 years ago, so they're quite new. Below that floor there, you've got a ground floor underground. This is where we used to keep stores, provisions, that sort of stuff. But parts of this floor had a far more sinister use as a torture chamber. The rack, scavenger's daughter, hanging in chains, and many other instruments of torture would have been used on those unfortunate souls. And that really was a dark and evil smelling place, ladies and gentlemen, lightened only by the torturers' candles. There is absolutely no way any screams or cries would have been heard outside of those thick walls. Today, you'll be glad to hear it's brightly lit down there. Very little trace of its former use remains. It is in fact a gift shop. Torturers' prices, I hear someone shout. Yeah. You can hear screams coming out of those tills all day long. Now, if you want to go in, go up the stairs on the south side, big wooden stairs, good views from up there. Okay, now, I did say there were some victims on this site, didn't I? Yeah. Well, the first one I'm going to tell you about in 1536 was Queen Anne Boleyn. And she was tried and found guilty on trumped-up charges of adultery, incest, treason, and just about anything else they could throw at her. Basically, she couldn't produce a son, an heir for the king, and she had to be got rid of. Divorce was not an option. Well, Anne was executed at her own request. Not by the axe, which she feared greatly, but in the French manner with a two-sided sword. Well, we didn't used to execute people with swords in those days. We used the axe. So we had to send for the executioner, and he came across from Calais in France. And on the day of the execution, he set up on the scaffold, concealing his sword underneath some straw at the back. And at a given point during the execution process, he signalled to his English assistant, who said something along the lines of, "Bring me my sword." Well, at that point there, Anne was momentarily distracted in prayer. And then the Frenchman took out that sword from behind and cut her head off with one clean stroke. A merciful act, I think you would all agree. He then did what he was supposed to do, and he picked up that head and he showed it to the crowd, who were probably stood exactly where you are all stood today. Only the crowd on that day all took one step back and they all gasped together. Brilliant. That doesn't normally work. Because it is recorded that her lips and eyes were still moving in prayer for some 5 seconds or so after her head was removed. So quick and clean was that cut. In 1542, ladies and gentlemen, the axe unusually fell twice on the same day. This time the victims were Queen Catherine Howard and her lady-in-waiting. Now, Queen Catherine Howard, I don't know if you've heard this, but she was said to have been a beautiful young lady. And she wasn't about to make the same mistake as Queen Anne Boleyn. Oh no. She was trying very hard to produce a son and heir for the king. She was trying really hard. Not necessarily with the king. She was trying really hard anyway. Yeah, turned out to be Thomas Culpeper, a gentleman at court, and one or two others if the stories are correct, and she paid the price for that here on Tower Green. Jane Boleyn, her lady-in-waiting, well, she was executed immediately afterwards, and her crime was knowing of her mistress's adultery but neglected to tell the king. So there you have it. Now, it doesn't matter, ladies and gentlemen, if you were executed down here on Tower Green or up there on Tower Hill with the masses, because your body almost certainly would have found itself underneath the floor in that chapel, which is where we are going to go next, ladies and gentlemen. Before we do so though, there are some rules with this one. Okay, very much a Christian place of worship in there. To that end, if you want to go in, gentlemen, if you're religion permission to do so, please remove your hats. Ladies, keep yours on. Don't want to see any bad hair days in there today. There's no eating, drinking or smoking in the chapel. Photography is forbidden. And please, can you now switch off your mobile telephones or cell phones?
Now we're in the medieval palace in London Tower. And here we see a bed for a king. This is so incredible. And here we can see tapestries on the walls. Here you can see the prayer room. Not allowed to go in, so this is all you can see. And from the window you can see the Thames River. Here you see the River Thames and over to London Bridge. This is so amazing. So that was all for this video, and remember to stay tuned because Courtney's video about the history of Hampton Court and Tower of London is coming next week, and remember to subscribe. Bye.